All right, I am dying to know. Are you loving the new format? Have you had a chance to check out the Kitchen Table Sister Chat yet? I hope that you're enjoying the variety that the new format creates. If you are new to the show, welcome, and let me give you just a really quick overview about our format. New episodes release every single Monday. The second and the fourth Monday of the month, I release episodes for the Wellness Impact, which covers a topic of the day with practical and actionable ways to create wellness in your life and explore the impact that that wellness creates. I also try my best to link what scripture may note about the topic of the day. These episodes carry a little bit more depth, and I really hope that they challenge you a little bit. These range from 30 to 40 minutes. They're more of a long-form podcast. On the other Mondays of the month, I release episodes for the Kitchen Table Sister Chat. These are intended to be really lighthearted, chatty, fun, short-form episodes. They range from 10 to 15 minutes per episode, and I share real-life favorites that I hope bless listeners. These might be recipes, devotionals, songs, books, and so on. And I also will share challenges that I'm experiencing or fails that are happening in real life. These are really fun, upbeat episodes, and they are meant to build community and emulate a really casual type of conversation that would likely be present if we were to really sit down in my home and have a cup of coffee at my kitchen table. So if you're looking for something more meaningful, check out the Wellness Impact episodes. If you're looking for something quick and upbeat, check out the Kitchen Table Sister Chat episodes. My hope is that you will tune in and enjoy both, but depending on your podcast platform, you may see two different types of cover art options. The Wellness Impact is mostly pink, and there's a picture of me, and the table chats are mostly yellow, and then there's a picture of hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. No images available? No worries, I've got you guys. The titles of each episode start with either TWI for the Wellness Impact or KTSC for Kitchen Table Sister Chat. All right, I hope that you've enjoyed this fun new format, and I've really loved bringing you an episode every single Monday. So I would sincerely love your feedback. Please take a moment to do one of the following. 1, rate and review the podcast. 2, share the show with a friend. Or 3, drop me a quick note. As usual, all my contact information can be found in the show notes. You know what? You can do all 3. I would be so excited if you did all 3. So that would be so awesome. All right, guys, rambling. Let's get on to the episode. The topic of the day today is self-love, also called self-care. Buckle up, friends, because today we are going to explore what this all means and what these practices are. Are they beneficial or are they toxic?
Hello, friends, and welcome back to a new episode of The Wellness Impact, a podcast focused on prioritizing faith, health, relationships, and your own personal defined standards. I'm your host, Emie Wilhelm, and I am so glad that you're here. Let's dive in.
According to a Forbes Health article dated January of 2023, self-love is a state of appreciation for oneself. And according to the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation, while it can look different from person to person, it encompasses being kind to yourself, forgiving yourself, refraining from self-judgment, trusting yourself, and understanding and valuing your worth are some of the ways that you can demonstrate self-love. Self-love also means having a high regard for your own well-being and happiness. Self-love means taking care of your own needs and not sacrificing your well-being to please others. This can also include setting healthy boundaries and prioritizing your own needs. The article goes on to note that self-care can be a form of self-love. And if you're not taking time to refresh and recharge yourself, then you're likely going to get overrun with the commitments of your life and even find yourself struggling with anxiety or depression. Okay, hold up for one moment. I can already see where we're going to need to make a quick tweak before we move forward. So if you know me in real life, you know that I like to create new, just kind of ironic or silly, some may argue dorky, ways to say cute phrases or new words. And I call these Emie-isms. Now, for the benefit of this episode, instead of saying self-care, also known as self-love, 2,300 times, I am going to create a new consolidated name. You are listening to history in the making, my friends. A new Emie-ism is being birthed as we speak. A new form of love called self-care love. And that is what we are going to call it through the duration of this episode. Feel free to use it, my friends, and spread the word. Who knows, this might really take off. So the topic for today is self-care love. All right, from what I can tell, there are really two divided camps regarding self-care love. One camp seems to feel strongly that self-care should be prioritized. The other camp seems to feel strongly that self-care is self-righteous and selfish. Okay, so I'm going to do something that I don't usually do this early in the episode, and I am going to show my hand. Friends, I am a huge proponent for self-care love. Now, whoa. If you are on the opposite camp of me, before you turn off the episode, don't turn off the episode. Please just keep an open mind. Please listen through the full episode, and if you still feel that it is a selfish practice, please reach out to me. I would honestly love the opportunity to understand more and connect directly with you. So for several years now, I have prioritized self-care love, and it has helped create really amazing, beneficial, impactful, and measurable changes in my life. Taking care of myself in these ways and intentionally filling my cup in this way has really helped me to fully show up in my life and to be available for the Lord to use me as He sees fit to impact others. I am going to share the list of the self-care love priorities that I use, and I encourage you to create your very own list. You might already have a list, and I would love to know about it if you do. Please consider reaching out to me and connecting to share. So let's take a look at my 12 priorities for beneficial self-care love. Take what you want from the list. Leave what you don't. I'll never know. Take the time to create your very own list. Or add to the one that you already have if you see something on my list that you like. Per usual, I'm going to read through all 12 of them, and then I'm going to break them down a little bit. Before I start my list, I'm going to tell you too, I feel like I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I think partly because of the room I'm recording in today, and partly because I'm just recovering from being sick. And so I think I'm talking kind of weird because my ears are really full and I can't hear very well. So I apologize if the audio or my voice is a little off-putting. Here we go. Here's the list of 12. Number 1, prioritize spending time alone with the Lord. Number 2, manage my mindset and quiet my inner critic. Number 3, daily update my prayers and praise journal. Number 4, move my body. Number 5, organize my spaces. Number 6, celebrate progress over perfection. Number 7, limit time on social media. Number 8, get outside. Number 9, nourish my body with whole foods. Number 10, seek ways to get out of my comfort zone. Number 11, prioritize rest. And number 12, prioritize relationships and intentionally serving others without seeking reward or recognition. All right, well, that is my delightful dozen, and I really want to take a minute to dig into each of these a little bit. So kind of get settled in and we'll start breaking these apart. So number 1, prioritize spending time with the Lord. Now that's really just carving out time to spend with the Lord. It's as straightforward as that. It's wildly beneficial, friends. I choose to do this first thing in the morning because otherwise my day seems to really fill in and it's harder to prioritize. I believe that spending this time daily with the Lord can have an immeasurable impact on your life as it has had on mine, as well as the lives around you. The lives that you impact on a daily basis benefit from you pouring into yourself in this way. This time with the Lord may look different for everyone, and for me, it often does look different from day to day. Here is a variety of different things that I may do during this time with the Lord. Read my Bible, work through a devotional, work through a Bible study, pray, meditate, memorize scripture, listen to worship music, or just be still and talk to the Lord and truly and patiently just wait for His direction. Number 2, managing my mindset and quieting my inner critic. Well, this is an ongoing process, staying really rooted in truth and reminding myself to assume good intent in others. It's not an easy practice, but it is really, really valuable. Training myself to rely on facts when making decisions and not my emotions. When my inner critic really raises the volume of her voice, instead of believing the lies that she is screaming at me, I now have the confidence to call her by name. I silence her. I remove her power over me, and I move forward. Is it easy? No. It takes a lot of practice, and it has taken a lot of tears. And I certainly do not do this perfectly, but man, I've come a long ways, and I am getting more and more and more and more persistence. And I'm going to be a little vulnerable right now. I want to share this little nugget with you, but I also want you guys to be kind, because you guys might find this to be really cool, and you might find it to be a little strange, but I'm going to share it with you anyway, and I strongly encourage that others do this as well. A few years ago, I named my inner critic. Now, if any of you are familiar with the show How I Met Your Mother, do you remember Robin's frenemy, Patrice? That is the name that I went with. And know that might seem odd, and that is okay. For me, being able to call her by name has been incredibly empowering. And after an incident when Patrice shouts and demands my attention, I take the time to reflect and really try to determine what caused my inner critic to shout so loudly at me in that moment. What triggered that type of a response from my inner critic? Did I feel threatened to believe it? And how can I combat that in the future? All right, number 3, keeping a prayer and praise journal. Keep a running list of prayers and praises. Taking the time to put pen to paper, thanking the Lord in praise, or reaching out in humble prayer for the needs that I see around me, that I know about around me, or even ones that I have in my own life. Number 4, move my body. I am committed to moving my body for at least 30 minutes every day. Physically and mentally, I feel so much better when I prioritize movement. And when I move my body, it reminds me that I'm taking care of myself, that it's a priority. And this is a healthy habit that is a really small thing that I can do every day that can have major impact on my overall health. Number 5, organizing my spaces. I've always been the type of person that needs to have an organized space to feel peaceful and focused. Now, when my home or my workspace is in disarray or chaotic, that for me is also the state that my mind tends to be in as well. So because of this, I prioritize keeping my spaces organized. Also for me, this is really about removing clutter more than about keeping everything sterilized and spick and span. For myself, it's really more about having everything in its logical place, if you know what I mean. Number 6, celebrating progress over perfection. Here is one example of this in my life. When I respond to a situation when in the past I would have reacted, that is progress for me over perfection. These are the types of things that I try to really notice and intentionally celebrate. I'm not trying to be perfect. I am trying to be better than I was yesterday. I'm not trying to be better than anyone else in the world. I am simply trying to be the best version of myself one day at a time, each day improving over the last and slowly progressing, creating this really deep root system in the version of me that I feel I'm intended to be. Number 7. Limit time on social media. A 2018 study in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology notes that limiting social media use to less than 30 minutes per day helps to improve your overall well-being, reduce feelings of loneliness, anxiety, and unrealistic comparison. Now, I am not there yet, but I'm really pleased with the progress that I have made in this department, and you may recall I participated in a social media fast during Advent, and in the new year, I decided that I would only go back on social media a few days a week. I wasn't going to spend any time on social media on Tuesday and Thursdays. The other days of the week, I limit my usage. Number 8, get outside. Again, this one is super straightforward, and I will note this is a year-round practice for me, even for this Minnesota girl. It feels so good. It really feeds my soul to get outside every day for at least 15 minutes, feel the sun or the breeze on my face, and really just breathe in that fresh air. It's just so life-giving. Number 9, nourish my body with a balanced diet of whole foods. Over much trial and error, I have found that avoiding sugar and dairy are super helpful in combating my migraines. Now, this can be different for everyone. For me, that has been a game changer. And I try to be very diligent about sugar and dairy intake because of that. I choose to focus on a macronutrient diet, selecting mostly whole foods, and I practice this 80-20 rule. I'm super structured 80% of the time, and then I have flexibility 20% of the time. I really enjoy that type of a structure because it gives me the ability to feel like I'm not breaking the rules or ruining my progress in the 20% of the time where I'm eating flexible. Also helps me to look at this type of a lifestyle change for the long haul versus doing something that's just a fad. I also practice 16-8 intermittent fasting, and I am really interested to know if you guys would like to have an episode on this because I have it down as a future episode, but I'd love for you guys to weigh in and let me know where your interests lie. Number 10, seeking ways to get out of my comfort zone. Now, I firmly believe that growth does not occur when you're sitting in your comfort zone. I know that I am somebody that wants to be constantly growing. So that means I will need to find ways to get out of my comfort zone. And over the years, this has looked like starting a Bible study in my home, reaching out to an acquaintance to suggest meeting for coffee, joining a small group at church when I didn't know anybody. In more recent years, this has looked like creating virtual Bible studies, starting a podcast, taking a course to become an ICF certified coach, starting a nonprofit with my husband. These are all things that I had no idea how to do. And it's been really rewarding to push myself to new levels to see what I am capable of if I just keep trying. And the most important part of all of that to me, and all those things I listed, there are other people that are positively impacted by me forcing myself out of my comfort zone. What more motivation could you possibly look for than that? Number 11, prioritize rest. I used to feel so much guilt around this one, and I have learned that instead I'm going to embrace that I need rest and lean into that to the point of prioritizing it. Rest has taken many forms over the years. My favorite way to rest in this season is to keep my calendar uncomplicated, to say no and to not feel badly about it, to plan a staycation, and to intentionally schedule downtime. Number 12, prioritize relationships and intentionally serve others without seeking reward or recognition. This is a handful of my closest friends that I'm talking about when I say prioritize relationships. I have learned I cannot be everything to everyone. And I need to be selective and choose and prioritize a few relationships that are significant and meaningful, instead of having a high volume of surface level friendships that lack depth. Now that might sound heartless, but I am going to choose to call it honest. I want to invest in a small amount of highly meaningful relationships, being fully present, fully engaged, and I love knowing these people in my circle. I love really, really knowing them, and I love that I can trust them and let them know me. Now that is my list, friends, and I'm guessing very likely that there are some of these items on my list that also were already on yours as well. Whatever our lists look like, it becomes paramount to prioritize our list and then to protect the time that is necessary to work through these lists. This means protecting the creation, the communication, and the enforcement of our healthy boundaries around these lists. Someone looking in from the outside could possibly view another person's self-care love routine and the boundaries around their routine as selfishness. Now, this can cause people to feel guilty for taking time for themselves, especially if they have responsibilities to others. And culture glorifies the overworking to the point of exhaustion, and it can make it feel like taking time for self-care is a sign of weakness or laziness. So here's my perspective on this. Having lived much of my life without boundaries, trying my very hardest to please everyone, trying to be everything to everyone all the time, I arrived in my late 30s not really knowing much about myself. And guess what? Regardless of how relentlessly I tried, I was not pleasing everyone anyway. I was exhausted, burned out, and I was empty. Prioritizing how I spent time doing the items on my list made a significant difference in my life. When I created space for these objectives and protected the time to complete these items, I started to come to life. I started to become present and active instead of a mere passerby in my own life. I slowly began to prioritize my faith, discover my identity in Christ, create space to get to know me. Over time, I was able to fine-tune my list and become really efficient with completing it. I'm also a firm believer that we will prioritize the things in our life that we really want to do, right? Meaning, our self-care love, if it's important to us, really important to us, we will find time to focus on it while also balancing the other demands of life. And as I've talked about in past episodes, this may mean putting in some dark work, using those dark hours in the margin of the day, in the early mornings or the late night when the demands of your time are lessened. Choosing to prioritize our priorities, showing up for ourselves without forfeiting other commitments. And I'm sorry, friends, I struggle to see this as selfish when it is not negatively impacting anyone. It's positively impacting you, and it's positively impacting the people that your life impacts. In full transparency, from what I've witnessed and experienced, I will agree that self-care love can become toxic. Here are 3 top ways that I see this play out. Number 1, when self-care love is consuming and it's taking way too much of your time, energy, or focus. Now, my reminder in this is that moderation is key, and that's just like anything. If it starts to consume you, it has become toxic. Even if something is good, it can become toxic if it's taken to extremes. Number 2, when self-care love drowns out your internal voice. And I think this one can be really dangerous. The more time and energy that you spend listening to other people's opinions and advice, the less time and energy that you'll spend tuning into your own intuition. Over time, it can become difficult to find your own voice or discern the direction from the Lord. Number 3, when our focus in self-care love is not aligned with Christ. Check your heart posture. What's your motivation? Self-improvement or self-promotion? Those are very, very different lanes, my friend. If your self-care love is rooted in vanity, if it's rooted in numbing feelings, if it's rooted in perfection, that's not what I'm talking about when I'm promoting self-care love. I'm talking about self-improvement. I'm talking about really deepening your knowing and understanding of yourself, deepening and knowing Christ in a completely captivating, life-changing, undeniable way. It's not self-serving. It's the opposite. It's dying to yourself. It's learning how to die to yourself and to live for Christ. The Bible also reminds us in Philippians 2:3-4, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking at your own interest, but each of you looking to the interest of others. If all of the self-care love that you are pouring into yourself is really about loving God and loving others and truly having an opportunity to know yourself, that's time well spent, friends. I don't see how that can be selfish. And as I wrap up the episode today, I want to humbly and honestly share that I don't do this perfectly. I am now and will continue to be a work in progress until the day that I finally get to meet the Lord. And I don't want anyone to listen to this episode and feel like I have this all figured out. I don't. I'm dedicated to these practices, but I do not do them perfectly. I also want to extend a word of caution. Please don't use self-care love to replace mental health needs from a professional. Often the same symptoms that self-care love seeks to solve, like being tired, unmotivated, overwhelmed, these can mirror common symptoms of mental health issues. I have shared on past podcast episodes my own struggles with depression that I call the darkness. And when I was walking through that season in my life, my self-care love routine was helpful, but friends, it was not enough. I needed to work with a professional to get the help that I needed to get my life back. And if you find yourself in a similar situation, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. While I am not trained to treat depression, I will work with you to help you find resources to get you the help that you need. And as much as I believe in self-care love as a preventative measure, it will not be enough on its own if you have developed a mental illness that requires professional care. There is no shame in this. Please never hesitate to let me know if there is something that I can do to help you. I would ask you, sweet friends, to please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. If you found value in this episode, please consider sharing it with a friend. If you have questions, feedback, or episode suggestions, I would encourage you to check out the show notes for all my contact information. I would sincerely love to hear from you guys. I'm looking forward to seeing you right back here 1 week from today on Monday, March 4th for a new episode of the Kitchen Table Sister Chat. And I hope that I will be back in full working order with better vocals and feeling more like myself. I love you all, and I encourage you to find new ways this week to be impactful, intentionally seeking out ways that you can do what you can from where you are with what you have to serve those around you and to point them to Jesus. Take care.
I hope that you are leaving this episode feeling both empowered and inspired, and that you received practical and down-to-earth takeaways that you can apply to your own life. I would be so touched if you would share this episode with a friend or reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. All of my contact information can be found in the show notes. And that is it for today, my friends. I encourage you to be impactful, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.